It's true. It's happening. Hi there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to yet another cracking installment of the Matt Brown Show. This is the Built in California series where I'm bringing you some cool founders doing amazing things, changing the world in their own way. With me on the line is the founder of Mighty Networks, Gina. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I didn't realize this was a California series. I'm like so excited and honored to be a part of that.
It's changed everything now, It's so cool. It's so funny. It's a funny thing you're touching on because I think there's you're in the community business, which we'll get into. I think you are anyway, but or the community enablement space. But I was chatting to founder Billy Brush. He's the founder of the Dark Horse.ai. It's incredible, amazing stuff.
Amazing.
And he was like, dude, I really love this Built in California story. I think it's really, really cool. So clearly, in California, there's a lot going on, which, by the way, a fun fact, most of the funded startups, something like 60% are in the US, are in California, Palo Alto, and obviously other parts of it, but California being the kind of hotbed. So great to have you here.
Those are true statements.
Yeah. So, man.
And I had absolutely nothing to do with it. I was born here. So I just basically looked around and stuck around, and I'm like, oh, hey.
I know, right? God,
there's some cool stuff going on.
Guilty by association, right? Oh my word. So you're doing amazing things. We should chat anyway about what Mighty Networks could do with the Matt Brown Show specifically.
Sure.
But for our viewers and audience around the world, you haven't who's this Mighty Network, Gina? If I don't get give us the elevator pitch, give us the origin story, backstory to who you are and what led to the genesis of Mighty Networks.
Sure. Well, let me start with the elevator pitch because I feel like that was the first point in this. So Mighty Networks is a new kind of no-code community platform. And our goal with it is to unlock absolutely amazing communities that are mastering something interesting or important together. And we do that by offering the things you'd expect from a community platform: chat, feed, content, humans, DM. But we have also done something kind of different, which is we also let you create online courses so that, for example, you can have your courses and community together in one place. Also, the ability to run paid memberships or private memberships. And so you can essentially create not just a chat community or a feed-based community and have it live in someone else's world. You also have it under your brand, instantly available on every platform. And, our ultimate goal is to unlock and usher in a new era of millions of unique and interesting and different kinds of communities, such that every single person that joins a network on Mighty looks around and just has an experience where they're just like, oh, wow, I'm surrounded by amazing people. And more importantly, we have a big purpose. We have a motivation for being here together, and we can do stuff. This isn't just about talking. This is about doing. And how we surface the most relevant members to each other, how we help with software to break the ice and give literally everybody around their most important things in their life, whether it's their career, whether it's health or wellness or other important interests, just this ability to look around and be like, oh my God, I'm going to be able to do something really special, not just here in, on my app or, on my phone or computer, but because of the connections that I'm making. And as a result of that, this community is getting more and more valuable with every new person who joins and contributes.
Amazing. Great elevator pitch. So there's a lot of communities out there, and I think this is a key thing I want to land straight out the gate, because obviously you guys have raised a significant amount of capital, and you are obviously doing something that's different. So I think this is a very important point to start with. So I don't think that there's a lack of communities out there. If you like Facebook groups, just being like, there's bazillions, right? There's the dad's mom of a dad's group for Castle Rock here where I am in Denver and so forth. And it seems on the face of it all that the world doesn't need another community. However, you are obviously doing something that's different in this community's space. So what is that point of difference from your perspective?
Right. Look, it's a great question. Increasingly, all of us have a precious finite resource, and it's our time, and what we pay attention to. Here's what's fascinating about every community platform. And I've worked in this world. I've lived in this world. Like, anybody who knows me or has worked with me will tell you one thing, which is, the lady seems pretty obsessed with communities. Like she seems pretty into it. And I am. And when you look at the platforms that exist out there that we've come to define as community platforms, whether that's Facebook group or Slack or Discord, just to name three, every single one of them has been built for people who already know each other. They've been built for people who already know each other. So Facebook groups, I've had a front row seat to them for, the last 15 years. The feature set of Facebook groups has not changed since I started following them. Has not changed. It was a product that was built to support a platform that connected people who already knew each other. Now, take Slack. Slack is a platform, super important one, super valuable one, that is built for people who work together, specifically small teams that work together. What is the characteristic of small teams that already work together? They already know each other. Take Discord. Discord was built for groups of friends who already know each other. By definition, if you're friends, you probably have met, who are playing games together, playing video games together. But here's the thing. As each and every one of us are spending more and more time online, especially in the last 2.5, 3 years, where it's like we've all become a little feral on some level, because we're like, oh, wait, we can leave our house and see each other's faces. It's kind of weird. So when you look at and think about what a community demands in 2022 and beyond, you actually have to create communities that are designed to help people meet each other and build relationships with each other and collaborate with each other and do things together that ultimately allow someone the opportunity to achieve results and transformation in their lives that's nearly impossible to do on your own, but really easy to do in a community. And so when you kind of come back to, sure, we're in a lot of communities, or there's a lot of communities platforms, I would argue that 99.9% of them are not great. They limit the possibilities of what community can mean in a time and a moment where we're spending time online. We have a supercomputer in our pocket, and we're starting to come back into the real world. So what do I mean by that? Well, start to think about what could happen if you show up at a community, and again, online or in real life, like even just the ability to get people together in a geographic location in a way that doesn't require someone in the group or the group admin to have to organize everything and follow up with everybody and hey, are you going to come? Are you going to be here on our live chat? All of that work. What if software could take that off your plate? And what if software immediately, by answering just a few questions, could connect you with the most relevant people in that community, the most relevant dads in Castle Rock? This is a vision for where things are going. Some of it we have today, some of it we're building, some of it we're thinking about building. But fundamentally, when you take community from the place of what kind of world can we live in when software can play the role of amazing host. And software can get smart about who wants to meet each other, and how not only do you surface people for quick swiping, but actually help orchestrate relationships in ways that feel awesome. What's possible? Could we invent new things? Absolutely. Could we create new cultures? Absolutely. Could we build new scenes that exist online and in real life? Absolutely. Could we unlock solutions to some of our biggest problems that exist? Absolutely. And so I don't believe there is a more important area of software to build. I do not believe that there is a more important area of time spent than whether it's hosting communities or whether it is being a contributing member of them.
So I love what you're saying, and I resonate a lot with that, because if I may speak completely freely, like I fucking hate Facebook. I hate.
Oh my, are you serious?
Yeah,
you're
man.
so like you're in the minority.
Yeah, I know, but I don't care. Judge me, people. I don't give a shit.
No, that was sarcasm. That was a joke.
Oh, right. Okay.
The tide is turned on Facebook, and the tide is turned on Facebook groups.
Can I tell you how I actually, the backstory for our audience here? So I actually found, I was looking for, because I hate Facebook. So here's why. There's always the narrative around like what they're doing with the data and all that stuff. But here's my thing in the context of communities. I have to pay to build the community. I have to then pay again to access that community. So if you are an entrepreneur or a founder or a solopreneur, or maybe you're a creative person who just wants to, have the community of their own, the economics don't work. Facebook is now 15 plus years old. It's time for something new. And I hate the idea, like if you think about the Matt Brown show, it's like I have the audience's attention because I built that. Like Facebook's not going to, I don't have to pay to reach anyone. So anyone that downloads my stuff, it's like, it costs me nothing, but I'm able to communicate my value and your value, as an example, through a conversation on a channel that I own. So when I was like, I've always wanted to build a community around the Matt Brown show. And I never really had the headspace to do that. Two reasons. One, I was busy running a very busy services business, and I was trying to exit, and I knew I was coming to the States. And also in Africa, there's only like 100 startups who've raised money in the last year. In the US, is like over 12,000, 60% of which is in California. So there's a much bigger addressable market. So now the timing makes sense for me to think about, well, how can I now do things differently? Like take the audience from the show and actually give them a platform to collaborate, like you said, to connect with the most relevant people, to overcome this barrier of, how to scale a startup or a business, and just to, hey man, connect to someone who, I'm really suffering today. Like I have massive imposter syndrome, like whatever the thing is, but to create more connections so that I can make the greatest difference possible. Now, all of that vision that I have for the show is not fucking possible on Facebook. Like it's not. And it's not possible on Twitter and LinkedIn and none of that stuff. So then I went to Google, and I said, hello, find me community software. And that's how I found you guys. By the way, your website's like way better than anyone else playing in the same space. But I think what I'm trying to get across to you, Gina, is like, I'm very curious to have a conversation to you today to unpack, okay, so how does Marty Networks now actually deliver on this promise? Not only for myself, because I'm most definitely a visionary, but to all the other creators out there who are, let's just say, disillusioned with what Web 2 options do or can do for them, because it's ridiculous. Like anyone that's
so let me there's a number of different directions we can go with that, and I think in terms of how we enable it and serve creators, we call them hosts, because it's entrepreneurs, it's creators, it's brands, but it's also like normal people, and from where I'm sitting, the things that are really important, like the fundamental tenets of what we are building, or what, in my opinion, any creator, any podcaster, any entrepreneur needs to be looking at in terms of anything that they invest in: their time, money, effort, energy, also social capital. Like, you've built these incredible relationships with your audience. And so now, so there's a number of different ways. So let's start with some of the basics. So number one, every host of a Mighty network owns that Mighty network. Now, do they own the software? No, we are an enabling platform, but you own your members. It is your brand. You own the content, and your members own the content that they contribute. We are not an advertising model. We are a subscription service. So the way that we work is you pay us for the software that we offer. So that's sort of number one and this is, so just a little bit of background, before Mighty, I founded a platform called Ning, which gave people a way to create their own social networks back in 2007. And our entire ethos was create your own social network for anything, like choose your features, it's under your brand, like bring your people. And we grew that very significantly. So 100 million people around the world used it. And, by the time, we sold it. And we got two things wrong with it. So we got a lot right. We got ownership right. We got, so one of the things I would just, a side note, I think this whole notion that like Web 2 means that like you're getting screwed by social media platforms, like hats off to whoever came up with that, but it does not by definition, and having worked through Web 2 fundamentally does not mean you're going to get screwed. It's just Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, but YouTube less than the other platforms, TikTok, any other social media platform, Snap, those are going to screw you, but they do not define everything that was ever built in the history of social software. So I'm now off my soapbox on that. Anyways, back to fundamentally, you got to have ownership. So we had that at Ning, brought that into Mighty. You've got to have flexibility. You've got to have, it's got to be your brand, but also your choice of features. That's why that is super important to us. And in fact, something that we're going to be launching here in the next few months is going to take that to 11 on our platform. Then you need to make sure that it's not just about content. And I think that model where so many people have come up in a social media era that was about content, and audience. And here's the thing that I know to be true, having grown up again in Silicon Valley, watched the earliest days of not just the web, but certainly Web 2 and the social web emerge, is you don't make money with content. You make money with the network effect. When you can create something, when you can use your content to unlock a platform where your fans and followers are meeting and building relationships with each other, and that the value that you are providing is not being on a content factory conveyor belt where my jaw has dropped when I have heard some of the pitches from platforms where they're like, you should be posting 5 times a day and it needs to be completely native content to any other platform. I'm like, are you serious? Like that is offensive to me. So what I believe the future is for any content creator is that we are all becoming culture creators. And the path to go from content to culture is on how are you creating a system and a network where you're sharing, Matt, the way that the culture you want your fans and followers to have and build with each other in a way that scales well beyond you. Because guess what? We all wake up every day. No one would be listening to your show because they're like, oh my gosh, I love Matt. They're listening to your show because they're like, I love Matt because he's opening my eyes or motivating me or inspiring me or giving me that one thing from that interview that I can take into my day and be a better entrepreneur or a better parent or a better person or help me reach my goals. And that's why we keep coming back to Mighty exists so that you can create communities and cultures that unlock your members' fullest potential. That together your members are going to get results and transformation in their lives that you just can't get if what you think the answer is that you're going to read more books or listen to more podcasts. The reason that alone does not work is because the world's changing too fast. And innovation, and even just getting your head around like what the heck is happening right now requires interaction. It requires collaboration. Innovation requires people actually having a back and forth, not just listening to podcasts. No offense to podcast listeners. I'm very happy about that. You have to then work through things with other people. And so for us, it's all about how does a community let you connect with other people in a context of a creator or a niche or a topic. We call it your big purpose. It's the motivation for you creating a community and the motivation for your members to join it and contribute. What are they going to get for that? And then ultimately, a community is amazing for helping people build new practices and change habits and create the lifestyle that they want that ultimately delivers those results and transformation that they can't get on their own.
So thank you for that. Lots to unpack there. So maybe let's go to the start. So where do you start with this? So let's say founders listening to us or creators listening to us right now, and they're like, yo, this sounds really interesting, but I just don't know where to start. I have a Facebook page. I got, 5,000 people there. I really want to have a better experience. I want to create my own culture, and they resonate with all the things that you said. Where do they start?
Great. So there are 5 steps to an awesome community. 5 steps. Number 1, you got to have a big purpose. You got to have the reason for your members to join your community and for them to know what they're going to get from it. Like, what's in it for me? So here's the really cool thing about a big purpose, because you're probably sitting there saying to yourself, like, well, Gina, what's a big purpose? So a big purpose actually follows a really specific formula. It's how we listen for things. And when people are listening for things, they're listening to, like, what is it? Does it relate to me? And if it doesn't relate to me, that's cool, but answer that question one way or another. And then what am I going to, like, if it is for me, what am I going to get from it? Or if it's not for me, what is that person that I can picture in my head going to get from this thing? You answer those three parts, and I'll share with you what they are in a moment. You answer those 3 parts, you've done 90% of the work of creating a successful community. So what is a big purpose formula? It's I or we bring together. So who are the people you're bringing together? So in your case, you're bringing together potentially curious, passionate entrepreneurs who in the next 12 months want to double their revenue. I don't know, I just made that up. 2, what are you going to do together in that community course membership? So what most people default to when they talk about community is I sort of think about it as like the learn, share, and grow, which is basically like, remember the old like Peanuts cartoons, and it's like when adults talked and it would be just like the wah, 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 wah. When learn, share, and grow is okay, but you can get so much better. So I or we bring together curious, passionate entrepreneurs. So first of all, if you're listening to this, I'm like, I'm a curious, passionate entrepreneur. Do I want to double revenue in the next six or 12 months? Yeah, I want it. Okay, now you've got my attention. We call that person your ideal member. Who's a person that needs your community the most right now. And I like to add the flourish of right now in all caps. 2, then what are you going to do together? We are going to learn a 5-step framework, or we are going to take and absorb a formula, or we're just going to share specific strategies for defining the next era in online sales or whatever it is. I'm making stuff up off the top of my head. So that we can is the most important part. those are the results. Like, okay, well, if I'm that smart, curious, passionate entrepreneur who wants to double revenue in the next 12 months, and we do these things together, what's possible for me at that point? Well, probably going to be a more successful entrepreneur, probably going to have a lot more fun, probably going to meet some really cool people that when we have the highs and the, I'm doing this pitch for you, that have the highs and the lows of entrepreneurship, I'm going to have people to go through that together. And I'm going to come out the other side smarter, happier, more successful. And that's going to motivate me to contribute. Now, there's 4 more steps. That's number 1. But you can see where all of a sudden in just that one sentence, and it can be kind of a long sentence, a short sentence, especially if you get people in transitions, like somebody who wants something or their life is kind of like, again, in this moment of rapid change or uncertainty or whatever. So, and we have a whole like, I'm going to build software at some point. I haven't built it yet, but like, I'm going to build software that's going to like get you, Matt, his big purpose, your big purpose. So then the 4 other pieces. Okay. So you got a big purpose. The next piece you need is what I like to call your year in the life. Now, the year in the life is, where do your members want to be a year from now that they, what do they want to be able to do a year from now that they can't do today? And then if you help people get there over the course of a year, what happens for you as the host? So as the host, you're like, okay, well, I could probably have a bigger impact. I could probably help more people in more substantial ways with less work, because they're not just, they're like, I don't have to produce 5 pieces of content every day for every social media platform. So the year in the life is and what you're essentially doing with your year in life is you're articulating progress, the journey to results and transformation. Then you execute a community with 3 super easy pieces. Easy peasy. Monthly themes, a weekly calendar, and call it daily polls and questions or daily actions, which I say daily, you can do them frequently. So monthly themes gives you a really exciting way, especially if they're meaty. So it could be something like goals and goal setting in January, something where members can contribute their stories, their experiences, their ideas. That's a monthly theme. It basically brings energy to a community. A weekly calendar, that's there to create a habit. So even if somebody's not showing up to your Tuesday, we do a give and an ask day where it's like members show up and they're like, hey, here's what I can give this week. Hey, here's my ask that I have right now. And that might change, and different people are participating in different ways. Everybody knows that that's what happens on Tuesdays, and the post is scheduled and it goes out at 9 a.m. or you do a live stream, or, there's something that happens on a regular weekly cadence, because that's how we create habits. And then daily polls and questions, again, they can be frequent on the days that don't happen. And those are really for making those sparks, those connections between members. So 2 people answer a poll. It's like they can start that conversation. And it's a really fun way for people to share their stories, experiences, and ideas. Now, those 5 things, you got a great community. You can add to it. We call the sort of the expansion quests. And there's like 4 different kinds of quests with online courses or challenges or experiences or collabs. But fundamentally, you set up those 5 pieces, especially you just get your big purpose right, which is like not ongoing content. On average, a host on Mighty Networks can generate $1,500 a month with 30 members. They charge $40 a month and post twice a week. On average, twice a week. Just set it up, let it run. And then, the expansion of quests and things like that, it's just because it's fun.
So thank you for that. I'm definitely going to sign up.
I think I gave you the plan. I think I gave you the plan.
I mean, it's basically done, right? I mean, there's got to be 10,000 people there already, right?
I
know. But it's great. I love, what I love about what you and your team are doing specifically is you're not just like this platform play. One of the things that I've seen, and feel free to disagree with me or not, is that you really do eat your own dog food. It seems to me that, you're not just like, hey, here's software, go figure it out, blah, blah. You actually eat your own dog food, meaning you actually build community, your own community around Mighty Networks using the things like this 5-step process that you've just shared with everybody. You use that yourself to build a Mighty Networks community. So that's what's really refreshing about Mighty Networks specifically as a startup. I'm curious to maybe double click on a few things here. So let's just say that I sign up. I touched on I was going to sign up because I'm really keen to do this. I'm hungry. And I'm sure many other founders are too. So I sign up with Mighty Networks and I figure out the purpose stuff and what have you and blah, blah, blah. But how do I actually get people to my community? Are we still advertising on Facebook? Am I,
great question. So number one, if you have 10,000 listeners, you talk to them, you share the big purpose. Hey, here's what we're going to do together. Here's the kind of the basic culture we're going to build in this community, and what you will get from it, and also what we're contributing and building together. So what are we building together? So that's the number one thing. Now, if somebody's starting from scratch and you're sitting there and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have 10,000 people listening to my podcast because I don't have a podcast, or actually let me make sure I don't lose the direct answer. Paid ads don't really work. And every single one of us has something much more valuable. I talk about it as like your people. You have your people. Now, we could call it networking, but then a little part of us would die inside when we say that. So you have your people. Now, here's what's really cool. There is probably a set of your people that in your life, whether it's friends, family, colleagues, former colleagues, people that you are connected to over a shared love or a shared interest. And so you have your people and you have your ideal member, who are the people that you're going to focus on in your community right now and who need it right now. There's an overlap between your people and your ideal member. Now, if you're sitting there and you're like, Gina, that's like 3 people. Start with those 3 people. Now, here's the other thing. Every person on the planet has someone in their life who is a connector. They just are. Like the person who knows people. It's like, oh, I know people. So if you don't have your ideal member, the person who needs your community the most right now, in all caps, in your world, you do have somebody in your world who knows people. And so I call those their people. So your people have their people. You are looking with your big purpose to get folks excited, clarity, and then excited about talking to your people about your new community, and then giving them a really simple way to talk to their people. And then you bring your members in. And again, you only need 10, 20, 30 people. We're not talking 10,000 people here. Why? Because in many cases, people pay attention to what they pay for. So you can charge, again, on average, we see $40 a month. And those 30 people are going to be very focused on the results and transformation that they're going to get. And they're going to get better results and transformation because they're paying. People pay attention to what they pay for. So then you've got 30 people that are having great results. They're like getting a lot of value from your community, from that, we call it community design. Those 5 steps are community design. And then you are creating an ambassador culture, which basically means, hey, this is our ideal member. This is what we're building here together. As you are out there in the world, let's bring in other ideal members that we want to build this community with, that we believe this community is going to get more valuable from each person that we all bring in, because they're sharing their stories, their experiences, their ideas. And that's going to give us more people on this journey to pull from, to be inspired by, to create a scene with. Scenes are how innovation happens, whether it's in Silicon Valley or Seattle and the music scene in Seattle, or Topanga Canyon in LA in the late 60s, early 70s. Scenes create innovation. And so everybody has a motivation to bring more members in. Now, you might be saying to me, but Gina, shouldn't I just post on social media? A couple of things here. So number one, social media got built by the model I just described. There are people, your people, their people, your community's people. How do I know this? Because I had a front row seat. Like I was like one of the first 100 people on LinkedIn because my friend was starting it, you know? And so this happened and happens over and over again. So I believe that the next generation of amazing communities are going to be built not by posting to social media and trying to boost a post, but rather through clarity of who your ideal member is, using this super simple formula of your big purpose, talking to your people, giving them a motivation and reason to talk to their people, for their people to, and your people to become your community's people, and for your community's people to bring in the next set of members into it.
Great. Interesting point there. I had a network scientist on the show not too long ago. He wrote the book called The Formula. He's Portuguese. His name's Albert Laszlo Barabasi. Anyway, difficult name to pronounce, but the guy's a true legendary rock star when it comes to the impact of networks. And basically the whole book, or one of the insights that he shared with me, and it's also in his book, is
would be me taking a note.
I know you take notes. But the book, in the book he writes about one of the things, because he basically studied networks in all sorts of things, and then he studied like what drives performance, and he looked at execution and this kind of stuff, and basically he landed on this, and this is, when performance can be measured, performance drives success. But when performance cannot be measured, networks drive success. And the reason for that is because networks are unbounded. Performance is bounded. So if you're running 100 meters, you can measure the performance. I did it in 9.6 seconds yesterday, or like you worked out this morning.
No big deal.
Like you can measure it. But
Matt just totally dropped like his numbers, and he's like, no big deal. But like, I'm just giving an example here, so keep going.
So this thing about networks is really powerful, right? Because in business, you're not running a 100-meter sprint. It's like it takes 15 years to become an overnight success. Like, you know this. Yeah. And so the influence of networks, even this, like a podcast, is really a network building tool for me. So as an example, I may hit you up in like a couple of weeks time and go, hey man, I'm really suffering with this thing. Like, can you help me out? Or could you connect me to this person? And you're more than likely going to reciprocate because you and I have a network connection. Makes sense?
Yes.
Which is what you were saying, right? It's like, well, there's your people, and then there's their people's people, and so on and so forth. So there's this network effect that is driven through the Marty Networks platform. Right. So, but it sounds also to me that you need to really know what your purpose is. And like I wrote in my book, which I'd love to send to you, is like, my dad once asked me, he said, Matty, I was young, I was like, 9 years old, whatever. And he was like, Matt, you really need to figure out one day what the purpose of your life is going to be. And for the next 30 years, like maybe like 25, 30 years, it gave me sleepless nights trying to figure out like, what should my purpose be? Where do I find my purpose? And then one day I realized, and it's basically when I started the show, was that you don't find purpose, you create it. And this is what I want to double click on with you. If someone's sitting with us is like, yeah, but I've got so much value to, like I was speaking to a founder yesterday. She's like in HR, which does HR services or talent strategy for small businesses. And she's like, yeah, but I've got all these things that I can do. There's so much value I can add. I've been doing HR for 20 years. Like, how do you choose? Like, how do you get in your own mind? Because it's like, cool, and what are we doing here? Are we trying to scale startups? Are we trying to create masterminds?
Yeah. So it's a great question. So number one, what's cool and important about your big purpose is this is not navel gazing. This is not about you. This is about who you are bringing together and the impact that you can have by bringing them together. It's also one of the reasons we talk a lot about to create a successful community that adds value and brings just like magic to your members. You don't need ads. You don't need to have a huge audience. You don't need a ton of content, and you don't need expertise. What you need is clarity. And so if anything, a big purpose, the only challenge with just that language is like, what if I don't want to be doing this exact thing in like 10 years? Do I have no, it's like, first of all, everybody, like, let's just all relax. This is about creating something that is living and breathing. And I always say this, a community is forgiving. It's adaptable. It's dynamic, unlike the content that you have to produce. If you want to live in like social media and be on that treadmill. So if anything, the biggest challenge is clarity in terms of where is there a need today amongst my ideal members? Where's the need? What do they want to accomplish? What are they struggling with? And then how do you create the conditions of a community such that you are giving them ways and people and inputs, if you will, for them to be able to solve their own challenges and create their own life. So, coming back to just even as you're describing who is probably a really successful, amazing person, it's sometimes hard. We think about ourselves as hosts of communities as the hero. Like we are the Luke Skywalker. We are not the Luke Skywalker. We are the Obi-Wan Kenobi. And hopefully we live a little bit longer. So our job is to create the conditions by which our members are able to find their allies, find their Princess Leia's and their Han Solos and Chewbacca's and R2-D2s, and then be able to craft what is that journey that they're going on. So from where I'm sitting, I feel like, one of the other things we talk a lot about is we have these 5 agreements of community design. And, number 1 is try new things. Number 2 is stay curious as you're trying those new things. Perfection is the enemy of progress, and communities are forgiving, so you don't have to be perfect. Number 3, our third agreement is reframe. So that amazing entrepreneur or potential entrepreneur that you're talking to, that person is probably pretty tied up in what are all the things I can do, as opposed to reframing it to who do I want to help? Like who wants this? Who wants this now more than ever? And then we listen and adapt. Like, don't show up at a community and start with like, hey guys, what do you want to do? I want to be around. Like, just want to do what you guys want to do. That's not how you host a community. That would be a terrible party, and it makes a terrible community too. You want somebody that's like, hey, here's where we're going to start. We're going to try this thing. Oh, that is really valuable. That's not. Okay, got it. So listening to and adapting. And then the last one is just trust the process. Like the number of people who are like, yeah, Gina, I know you're telling me that I should be pretty specific with my ideal member, but I'm trying to do something pretty different here. Like, you've never seen this community before. Like, and I laugh a little bit inside. I'm like, I've had a front row seat to literally over 3 million communities created, 300 plus thousand that are active and successful. What's the difference between those 300,000 that have been successful and those 3 million that were created? Clarity, specificity, that people can find you and your community. People know what value is going to come from them contributing. And ultimately, the role that each and every one of us plays. And I appreciate you, mentioning and talking about Mighty Community. We don't understand, like, how do you build software? Software is in service of people getting results and transformational experiences from communities with courses and memberships and all the things we built. That's why we exist. So this idea that like we're going to go and sell software and not actually use Mighty Community as a teaching community and as an R&D lab and just making things obvious for how we're going to unlock this new era of millions of unique and vibrant communities mastering something interesting or important together. So hopefully that helped provide some context and answer that question.
It did. Thank you. If I may, I'd like to add,
Sure.
so because it's contextual, I think it's really important, this point around clarity, because so I had Robbie Kelman Baxter on the show. I don't know if you know, she's in your neck of the woods.
I love Robbie. She's awesome.
Yeah, she's amazing. And so she obviously, as you know, probably she wrote the book, The Forever Customer. And so she was talking on the show about what is the forever promise? So, it's a thing, right? And let's use the map around show. So there's a lot of things we could do, right? We could help you generate revenue. We could help you with support. We could help you generate referrals. We could it's business, right? It's how long is a piece of string? So why? And also, by the way, I can get all that stuff in a dozen other places. You know what I mean? The world doesn't need another startup accelerator. You know what I mean? And so the clarity piece is almost like the Robbie Baxter insight, which is what's the forever promise? If you join up with this community, we will get you from here to there. Meaning, I had another guy on the show yesterday, Brian Salih, and his whole thing is, we'll help you add a zero to your revenue. That's clarity. So that's what that's clarity.
And let me put it just on the point of the world doesn't need another startup accelerator. The world doesn't need another startup accelerator built in the model of Y Combinator and Techstars. But the insights, and this is the place I think to look for insights that can give you that clarity, because it's easy for us to sit here and say clarity and oh yes, we need clarity, and then you sit down and you're staring at a blank notepad, or you're staring at your computer what do I do now? What we have found and what we advocate for, and it is working for so many people building amazing communities on Mighty and off, which is, what is that transition? So for example, if you're going to create a startup accelerator, what is that transition? And who is going through that transition right now? And most importantly, and this is the beautiful thing about a community, who do they want to meet? How are you connecting people to each other? And look, the connecting people to each other does not mean, oh, I'm going to get the biggest ballers in Silicon Valley to come in and be in my community. That doesn't work. In fact, actually, peer navigation and peer support and going on that journey with allies and people in our scene. We're all not trying to create a scene with Reid Hoffman and Elon Musk. It's how are we creating our own culture and our own scene for us to achieve results and transformation that we want to achieve. That's the magic of a community. And that's the magic that you, Matt Brown, can uniquely build as you get clarity around your ideal member. What is that transition that they're going through? Where are they starting from? Where do they want to be? And why is being in a community where they are sharing stories, experiences, and ideas with people on the same path so powerful? Well, one, you can navigate uncertainty and creating new things. Two, you can build new habits and change practices and create the lifestyle that you want. And three, you will ultimately have a speed to results and transformation that you just will not get on your own. Why? Kind of to your network guys' point, I'll put it a different way, but it gets to the same idea, which is individuals have a finite amount of self-discipline. We all have a finite amount and we use it up. A community, and this is why innovation happens in a community, it happens in scenes, gives you unlimited inspiration and motivation and drive. And because it doesn't tap into that self-discipline. It doesn't tap into that finite resource. You're doing things with your friends. And you're doing things with people that you're focused on something else. You're not just focused on, oh my God, I don't want to work out this afternoon. So that's the power of a community that you just don't get with other You don't get it with content. You don't get it by like listening to, no offense, like listening to 7,000 podcasts. I love podcasts, but like they play a specific role, and community plays a different, and I would argue very powerful role that is underappreciated today, because we all believe that, oh, like, what am I going to get out of another Facebook group? Like, that sounds terrible.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a good idea to me, I'm afraid. Yeah, so it's interesting. I think the one thing that I'm really hearing and like wasn't very apparent to me, you know, having been on your website and listening to some of your content and stuff like that, is how important collaboration actually is. So here's the thing. So we're gonna, you know, join this community, whatever it's called. We're gonna help you cross the chasm, or whatever the case is, or we'll add 0 to your revenue in 6 months. So that's great. But like you said, content, like, okay, that's part of it. Yes. But really it's about this. Well, how? Like, how do you collaborate so that together we can add 0 to our revenue? So I'm curious, because I haven't played around with the software just yet, but how do you actually enable collaboration, you know, amongst two peers? So let's just say you've got two funded startup founders. They've raised seed capital and they want to go into growth stage, cross the chasm, get, you know, engage with a niche that's small enough to lead, big enough to matter. There's two people. How does Marty facilitate collaboration there?
Yeah. So it's a great question. And there's, you know, a simple answer. So number one, Mighty gives the host of a community the opportunity to define and give those two people permission to collaborate. And I think this is an undervalued part of community. So what you do as the host is to say, hey, when we're here, this is how we're interacting. This is the culture. I think, for example, community guidelines and this idea that you show up at any community and it's like, do not be a horrible person. I'm like, okay, got it. Like, but like, why do you think I'm like a horrible person to start off with? Like, instead, especially if you're creating something that is paid, like, you want to create a culture that says, this is the positive things that we do. This is how we do it. So 80% of enabling that collaboration starts with, all right, dudes, we're here. This is what we're doing here. This is again, our big purpose. This is progress we want to make. When you provide that kind of clarity, what happens is that people start sharing. People start like, hey, what do you think about this? Or like, this was my experience with this. So for example, so I teach this community design course. Call it a masterclass, just because, you know, we gotta pump it up. But it's also really effective. So I live stream. So I native live streaming in our Mighty community. And first of all, my work gets better because there's a live chat going on and they're all meeting each other and they're asking me questions and I'm responding and they're asking each other questions. But more importantly, they're sharing their stories. Oh, I tried that and that didn't work for me. Or, hey, this is how I kind of came out of this step of my big purpose. So this is where I'm stuck. And they're all helping each other. It's that combination of setting the culture, setting what are we going to do here together, and then providing that kind of live streaming. And then there's direct messages and there's posts and there's articles and there's like all these different ways that you can collaborate. But I think that the piece that gets missed, and there might be some people that would have assumed that my answer to that was like, we have DMs. Well, yeah, we've got DMs because it's 2022. Of course we have DMs. But it's the combination and the way the promise of a course works, and then the ability to live stream and be in a live chat together, and then what I call the actions that you have in what's a Spark course. So you like have the subject, you have people's stories, you've got an action, then from the action your members are able to get results, and then from those results you have knowledge. So did you see what I did there?
It was amazing.
Anyways, so the action piece of it. So as people are doing those actions that you as the host set up, then they're getting value from each other, and they're collaborating in ways that if all you do is say, hey, here's my chat room, you guys go at it, nobody knows what to do. So I would argue that so much about the actual collaboration comes from these priming steps that are not hard. It just requires you to not show up at a community thinking that it's social media and thinking about like, oh, I need to have 5 pieces of content every single day, and I need to, make it that it's social media content. Social media content evolved to fight for people's attention when they're willing to give you 3 seconds. The hard part with the community is getting people in. But again, we've taken care of that with your people and their people and the community's people. But once they're in, it's about the value you have promised. And it is about the actions that they are going to take and the stories, experiences, and ideas that they are going to share in pursuit of the results and transformation that comes from that big purpose.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. I think one of the things that if I could say what I heard, it's kind of like when you're working with Marty, or the purpose is not even with Marty, but communities in general. Like if you're going to be a host, it's about not just the connections, it's about the value of those connections that the connections create.
That's really well said, Matt. Really well said.
Because you can connect to anyone. Like it doesn't
right.
like I mean, where's
not
the
R?
No, it's terrible.
Yeah.
But but it is about and I love the word culture. I think culture is something that and a cause actually is another thing. Here's the promise, but here's the cause. Like we're on a mission to reduce the amount of small businesses that die every year.
Right.
So when you sign up, we'll add a 0 to your revenue. Like it's about bringing all those things together.
Yeah.
And then I suppose what you're saying also is about using the mechanics of software to facilitate conversation, culture, behavior, gamification, rewards, incentives, educational courses, blah blah blah, live events.
Right. Well, and that comes back to where we started. So I think we can end where we began, which is it's also really important. Now imagine you have all of those tools and techniques that are in pursuit of results and transformation. They are actually there for people to get results and transformation, not to make Facebook more advertising money, or like think about changing the terms that you reframing, if you will, engagement to culture, time spent to results and transformation. And again, when you're paying directly and you have a subscription and people aren't there for all the things that you offer, like all the content. Like this is one of the biggest mistakes I see people make. It's like, oh my gosh, I have, and by the way, I've made it too, which is like, we have 30 hours of live streaming, or 30 hours of course content, or 500 pages of PDFs, or, and guides. People don't want volume. They want answers. So if you can actually reframe in your head from content, where we've just been trained for the last 15 years, that you push content into a system and maybe you might make money, but you know who definitely makes money? All the people working for, 6 figures plus at Facebook. So instead it's about saying, how can I pay somebody? And it's not pay, can I pay to belong to a community where I'm going to get results and transformation in my life? I'm going to get it as fast as possible with as little work as possible. Now, it doesn't mean no work. It just means as little work as possible, given that big purpose, given that goal.
So Gina, what's your vision here? Like what kind of a world do you imagine in, let's just say, maybe even a Web3 context?
Yes. So to me, what Web3 means is 2 things. 1, continued ownership, value creation, and utility. Meaning it's about how communities become more and more generous and more valuable with the contributions that we're all making. So we haven't announced it yet, but we will have an announcement soon in a Web3 dynamic.
Already?
It will not be that we are becoming a DAO. I will just say that out loud. But if you could imagine what you would want in a community in terms of native features, one of them would probably be token gating, which we will have here very soon. I'm terrible at keeping secrets if you haven't noticed.
No, you're
so
terrible.
really bad, really bad. So, but my vision for the world I want to live in 24 months from now is that anyone shows up at a community around something they care about, their career, health and wellness, other important interests. They see instant value. They make instant valuable connections. They can look around and say, oh my gosh, not only do I feel at home, because that almost sounds like, oh, I feel like I can relax. I feel energized. I want energy. I want you to feel energized, excited, inspired. And I want to make it as easy as possible, as easy as humanly possible for the host of that community, that's the member joining, for the host of that community to enable that for the people that they care about and they serve and they want to see succeed in life and career and in problem solving and overcoming challenges, that they're able to create that experience that today is not possible.
Amazing. Great answer. Well done. Well done. Terrible at secrets, but very good answer on the other thing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
But Gina, our time has run out. I feel like I could spend another hour here. I've got lots more questions. Maybe we'll get you back on like once your launch is done.
That sounds like a plan.
Because, you know, like also terrible at secrets. So I've I've got a new thing that I'm also busy launching. What's your timeline?
It will probably, well, we have smaller releases, but the really transformational release that we have coming up is in December.
Oh, really? Interesting. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, we must definitely keep chatting. So, yeah, I've also got to think, because like it's, to be perfectly transparent, it's very hard to really create the value that I have in my mind with a podcast. Like it's not, it's just a medium, you know what I mean? It's not a community. It's not a culture. It's not a network. And so I've been trying to pigeonhole the thing onto the Matt Brown show, like using the conversation as a reference today, as an example, but it just doesn't work. People don't get it. Like, why am I doing this on a podcast, you know, or from a podcast host? But they will join Mighty Networks. They will join, you know, Riser. They will join like a different brand. So that's coming. But it's about taking all the, like the talent, like you said, like who am I connecting with? Like I've got an incredible brain trust. Like I've got Steve Blank coming on the show next week with David Skonthal. He's like you probably know them also. But anyway, like it's bringing these people, that caliber of brain trust to scale up. So like you are wanting to cross the chasm. You found a nail to hit. Well done. Now you need to figure out, you know, how to actually not die, not run out of cash. And so anyway, there's a lot of visionary work that I've been putting in there, like over the last couple of months. And now, as I said, right up front, funny enough, like the US, man, like this is where I can make the biggest difference. So very curious. And by the way, I literally spoke to my wife this morning. I was like, you know, Web 2, this social media, blah, blah, blah. People don't get it. And I think I know you're a visionary. And I think what you're doing and have done even historically, like you've raised 50 bar already, which is amazing. So I think even now I'm so excited that you said something about Web3, because can we have a better sense of ownership? You know what I mean?
Yes, you can. And you can do it with or without tokens. You can do it on or off chain. And it's all here. It's all happening.
So let me know when you're ready to
come
make some noise. Alrighty.
All right.
Gina,
sounds great.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Cheers,
Take
guys.
care.